What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Canada explained by Rick Mercer. Today, we're gonna watch a funny little video segment by Rick Mercer where he talks about Canada and explains Canada and Canadian life and culture in a funny way. But before we jump into the video, I just want to take a moment to learn about who Rick Mercer is. Because I've heard this name come up before. I've had people recommend Rick Mercer content. Apparently he has a lot of funny videos on YouTube, and he's a Canadian comedian and TV personality. And apparently since the 90s, very popular, very famous, has done a lot of funny stuff, and this is the first time I'll ever be reacting or watching something that he's done. So I'm excited for that as well. So let's take a look. This is Canada Explained by Rick Mercer.
Hello and welcome to everything you wanted to know about Canada, but were afraid to ask. Canada.
Especially as an American, there is a lot of stuff about the world, and definitely a lot of stuff about Canada that we are afraid to ask at this point. We just don't know, we don't understand, and we are afraid to ask at this point. So this is perfect, this is great.
We are a large northern landmass, and by and large, we have enjoyed 141 years of peace, order, and good government. And our official summer sport is lacrosse. Basically, that's
true. No one's laughing, but I actually think that's kind of funny. I don't know if he's trying to be funny there, but it is shocking, like as Americans. When I found out that the summer sport of Canada is lacrosse, like, I didn't even know there was a summer sport, but I just think of Canada, hockey. No idea that lacrosse was even a thing.
That's all you need to know. Oh, one other salient fact. According to a recent Dominion Institute poll, a majority of Canadians have no idea how Parliament works, which is fine. We're all very...
Wow! Canadians are just much more like Americans than I ever imagined. I like him so far. He's very sarcastic, kind of a dry sense of humor. Says stuff matter-of-factly, like observational humor, self-deprecating a bit. I don't mind it at all.
Very busy people. We have lives to lead, families to raise. We're on hold with Rogers, and to be honest, it is perfectly understandable to enjoy something without knowing how it works. Such is Canada. After decades of stability,
I can relate to this so much. And yes, Americans, definitely, we don't understand how our government and stuff works at all, so he's kind of pulling the curtain out from Canada. I thought the world of Canada, I thought every Canadian knew every little thing about Canadian Parliament, and man, now I just think, oh, Canadians and Americans are more similar than I imagined. Wow, none of us know what's going on with anything.
We were suddenly faced with minority governments, talk of coalitions, and the threat of an election every 6.5 weeks. But we took solace in the fact that we are one of the greatest democracies on this earth, and at least we know who is ultimately in charge. Well, not really. When asked, who is Canada's head of state, 75% of
Canada's head of state. Head of state. Is this the Prime Minister, or is this a trick question and it's actually like King Charles or something? Like the monarch. Head of state, I don't know. I'm just an American, I don't know.
Canadians could not answer the question. And who can blame them? The answer is ridiculous. It is the Queen of England.
Oh, I actually feel kind of good about that. It was Queen Elizabeth, now it's King Charles, head of state that's a technical title there. Wow.
Now, for those of you unaware of her work, she's an elderly lady of German descent who lives in a castle across the ocean. In fact, in order to become a Canadian citizen, you must swear an oath of loyalty to the Queen and her heirs. Luckily, I was born here, so I've never had to do it. Now,
I like this quite a bit, actually. I really, really enjoy his sense of humor.
Fortunately, the Queen is a very busy woman. She has 9 dogs. And when she doesn't have time to pay attention to Canada, which is, let's face it, always, she has a representative who lives in Ottawa and is in charge of Canada. No, not him. Next slide, please.
Oh, I don't know who this person is. Oh, no. I'm missing out on humor. I don't get the joke. I don't know who that is.
Please. The Governor General, in the Queen's absence, assumes all her responsibilities and duties, and according to our Constitution, must be of sound mind and have hosted an arts program on the CBC.
Wow. I like how he is, also part of his humor is like pointing out the absurdity in a lot of things as well.
Okay, that's not true. There's no test for her being of sound mind. In this country, nothing happens until the Governor General says it does. Laws do not get passed. Parliament does not sit. Elections cannot be called. We do not even go to war unless she says so.
Really?
But to be fair, she takes her orders from the Government of Canada. After all,
I didn't even know about this Governor General stuff. I know that's not even the point of this comedy routine, like Canada Explained video, but maybe it kind of is. It's Canada Explained. I'm learning, I'm getting educated here, as well as being entertained by the comedy. That's what I'm trying to say.
we are a democracy. Although, granted, it may not seem like it yet. So, who runs this great democracy? Well, according to the polling, a majority of Canadians believe that Stephen Harper was elected directly by the people of Canada to run this country. Unfortunately for Stephen, that's not true. He holds the office of Prime Minister, but he was elected as a simple member of Parliament. And the only reason he's the Prime Minister is because in his other job, he's the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada.
That's right. Oh my gosh. I haven't thought about, okay, the Canadian governmental system and electoral system. People elect MPs? And in Canada, is the Canadian Prime Minister is the leader of the majority party? I believe it's quite different than how we do stuff here in the United States. But it's quite different. So I actually had to think about that for a second.
And if he walked away tomorrow, the party would just pick some other dude to be Prime Minister. And we'd have nothing to say about it. It could be this dude, or it could be...
Okay, I don't know who any of these people are. Otherwise, I think I'd get more of a kick out of this joke. But he just... Man, Rick Mercer just has me thinking here. Like, is that true? Canadians vote in, like, members of a party, but it's really the leader of the party gets made the Prime Minister. So I guess you're kind of indirectly voting for the Prime Minister, but not directly? Yeah.
this dude, or it could be... No, it couldn't be that dude. Okay, but wait, it gets weirder. The Prime Minister only keeps his job as long as he enjoys the confidence of the House of Commons.
Right.
Which means, on an important vote, a majority of members, regardless of party, must stand up and say, yes, we support you. And if they don't, well then it is back to hanging out in your strip mall constituency office in Calgary Southwest.
I'm not fully understanding all the Canadian humor here. I feel like I'm really getting into this is like very, these references are very, very obscure to me. But this is, I love how his humor is like pointing out the absurdity and like how we do our politics and how literally our laws and government are structured and how we vote for things, how we vote for our leaders, like the absurdity in it. Because if you don't point out the absurdity and just laugh about it, all that's left is to cry about it. And I prefer to laugh through the tears.
Humiliating, yes. But the advantage of our system is that if our Prime Minister decides to do something completely insane, we have a mechanism to remove him almost immediately.
Okay.
And some countries, they don't enjoy that luxury. And when a Prime Minister...
All right, finally. Oh, no. No! Okay. Finally, something, I didn't want to be the butt of the joke, but at least I get the joke.
Loses the confidence of the House, the Governor General, if the Queen is not in town, will dissolve Parliament and call an election. Or she can go behind door number 2 and ask another party leader if they have the confidence of the House. If the answer is yes, then they become the Prime Minister. That's the way our system works. Now, Stephen Harper found...
It is surprising how, like, so many of these laws and processes literally are, like, hundreds of years old and haven't changed at all. It's actually really interesting to think about.
Himself in this position less than 9 weeks ago, after his government announced that in their best estimation, after crunching all the numbers, after taking in all the information, Canada was in fine financial shape and would post surpluses for the next 5 years.
Wow.
Now, some people raised an eyebrow.
Oh my gosh, I like Rick Mercer. Based on this alone, his style and presentation, slapping the little television, his delivery, and the subject matter, making light of these sort of complicated situations is fantastic. Some raised an eyebrow.
Other people, like every leading economist in the country, raised 2. As a result, a majority of MPs made it clear that if he didn't come clean with the numbers, they would fire him and form a new government. Some people may call this a loss of confidence. Others may call it an intervention. And at this point, the Governor-General prorogued the House of Commons. Prorogued being Latin for technical difficulties. Please stand by.
I actually did not realize this video is actually sort of a history lesson. Like, literally for me, definitely. Rick is being very funny, but he's actually talking Canadian politics and Canadian government and all these different processes and positions. This is surprisingly educational for me as well, but it is called Canada Explained.
Canadians were confused, and Stephen Harper's caucus provided calming analysis. Pierre Blackburn said the opposition was attempting a coup d'etat, a violent overthrow of a duly elected government. Bob Deckhart, he called it treason, punishable by life in prison. And Heritage...
I never heard about any of this, as an American. Never even heard, whenever or whatever was going on during this time. I didn't know any of this.
Minister James Moore said, "My dog wears a raincoat." All of these statements are patently untrue, except for the raincoat, which is just embarrassing. The important thing here is, despite the hyperbole, Stephen Harper, fearing for his job, said, "Oops, on second thought, we looked at the numbers again, mistakes were made, charts were held upside down, and Canada is actually going to post an $87 billion deficit."
Did this actually happen? I assume it. I think that's the comedy in it, is that it's so absurd when you actually say it out loud, and that's kind of the genius of Rick Mercer here. Like, did this actually happen, though? The government, officially said Canada was gonna, print a surplus, economic boom, and then, under, the scrutiny, immediately came back around and were like, oh, actually, the complete opposite, by the way.
Whoops. And when the dust settled, Stephen Harper was still the Prime Minister, and Canadians finally had a clear picture of the economy. And the important thing to know is that despite the confusion, the talk of coalition, and the ridiculous accusations of treason and the suspension of Parliament by an unelected former broadcaster, a system that seemed to be broken was actually hard at work. And that is everything you wanted to know about Canada, but were afraid to ask.
Oh my God. That was a lot. That was actually more dense in information than I thought. But Rick Mercer has just from the viewpoint of someone who's never seen him talk before or do his style of comedy, I am a huge fan already.
God save the Queen.
Is this kind of what his show is like? I see he has a show called the Mercer Report. Mercer Report. I gotta give this a like, by the way, because I did enjoy that. Is this kind of what the Mercer Report is? Kind of a commentary, and a kind of talking about and showing the absurdity in news and in government and politics. And there's a couple of satirical news shows like this that exist in the United States that kind of serve a similar purpose. But this, I really quite enjoyed this and quite enjoyed seeing Rick Mercer do this. I am actually really excited to take a look at some of his other work as well. I know there's stuff where he's interviewed Americans, and that's very funny and kind of embarrassing, and other stuff that he's done. But as like a Canada Explained kind of segment, and seeing Rick for the first time, this was really fun to watch. And actually, I learned a few things about Canada's government. That makes me feel a little less embarrassed about the American government, to be honest, and some controversies I didn't know about. But the real takeaway for this for me was seeing Rick Mercer do his thing, and it was very, very entertaining. I totally get it, and I enjoyed this quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with your thoughts on what he explained about Canada, or just on Rick Mercer and other things he's done, and anything like that would be real interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.